using longer cooking times, or employing aluminum foil. Although laboratory studies suggest that high levels of aluminum can be neurotoxic, extensive research has not established a strong link to Alzheimer's or Parkinson's diseases. Overall, aluminum cookware is generally safe, but it should be used with caution under conditions that promote leaching. Ceramic-coated cookware has quickly become popular, with the brands like Our Place, Always, and Green Pan claiming these pans are non-toxic, healthy, and environmentally friendly.
Welcome to The Functional Edge. I'm Dr. Julia Ward, and this is where science meets real-world strategies for living healthier, sharper, and stronger. From uncovering hidden environmental toxins to unlocking peak performance and mental clarity, we cover it all. Ready to take control of your health and thrive? Let's dive in.
Welcome back to week 2 of Detox Your Life. I hope that you've had time to digest what we covered in our last session and started to slowly shift some of your food purchases to help lower your toxic exposures. This week, we're going to stay in the kitchen, but mostly away from food itself, and instead look at food packaging, food storage containers, and cookware. All the things we use to purchase, prepare, and store our foods in. Just like last week's class, this week's topics can sometimes be complex and nuanced. Some of the issues that we're going to get into today are straightforward, and others are less so. Topics such as microplastics in our food and PFAS chemicals are challenging, and we don't always have easy ways to avoid them. Let's take a moment before we start to remember that our goal is to find where there are opportunities to lower exposure, act on those, and do the best we can. First, let's define PFAS chemicals. PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are a group of man-made chemicals that have been widely used in various industries around the globe since the 1940s. These chemicals are known for their resistance to heat, water, and oil, making them valuable in numerous applications. However, their persistence in the environment and the human body has raised significant health and environmental concerns. Common uses and locations of PFAS. Number 1, non-stick cookware. PFAS are used in coatings of non-stick cookware such as Teflon. Number 2, water-repellent fabrics found in outdoor clothing, carpets, and upholstery to provide stain and water resistance. Number 3, food packaging used in grease-resistant paper products such as microwave popcorn bags, fast food wrappers, and pizza boxes. Number 4, firefighting foam, aqueous film forming foams, or AFFF, used for firefighting, particularly at airports and military bases. 5, cosmetics, used in various cosmetics for their water-resistant properties. 6, industrial applications are used in manufacturing processes such as surfactants in products like paints, varnishes, and sealants. So, reasons to avoid PFAS. Number 1, health risks. These have been linked to kidney and testicular cancers. They can disrupt hormones and thyroid function. They may weaken the immune system. They can negatively impact fertility and pregnancy. They are associated with developmental issues in infants, and they have potential damage to the liver and the kidneys. Number 2, environmental persistence. These are known as forever chemicals because they don't break down, contaminating soil, water, and wildlife. Number 3, bioaccumulation. This is the buildup in the bodies of animals and humans, increasing the concentration up the food chain. Number 4, widespread contamination, found in water, air, and soil, even in remote regions like the Arctic. We'll explore PFAS in more detail in later slides. This week, we're going to be looking at exposures that we ingest. Beginning next week, we will look at chemicals we absorb and inhale. Let's dig in. We'll start by talking about food packaging. Unless you're living on a farm and growing your own produce, raising and butchering your own animals, or hunting and fishing, which aren't without their own issues, then some amount of food is going to come in packaging. This is going to be true even if it's minimally processed. Not all food packaging is inherently problematic, but the more we learn, the more we find. Over 300 chemicals are used in food packaging, yet many remain understudied. Although the FDA labels many ingredients as GRAS or generally recognized as safe, this status is often self-assigned by food companies and applies only to food ingredients, not to chemicals that migrate from packaging. Food contact materials, or FCMs, the approved packaging for our food, can release chemicals into what we eat. Consider canned foods, a staple for millions, especially in communities with limited access to fresh produce. Canning revolutionized food preservation by replacing methods like salting, smoking, and drying. In 1795, Napoleon even offered a reward for better preservation methods, paving the way for early cans made of tin-plated steel or cast iron. To maintain the integrity and safety of the foods in the can, caution needs to be taken to make sure that the food doesn't degrade the can material, which can open the door to dangerous and even deadly bacteria. This is why the interior of the cans are lined to create a barrier between the food itself and the metal of the can. Since the 1950s, the primary chemical that has been used to line the cans is BPA, or bisphenol A. Just like with the pesticides discussed last week, bisphenols are non-persistent. They are metabolized and excreted within 6 to 12 hours, but can still be harmful in the short time they are in the body. The problem is that due to regular consumption of canned foods with bisphenols and many other sources of exposure, the majority of the population has pretty constant levels of them in their bodies. Food is our primary source of exposure to bisphenols, which is why we're starting here. A 2016 study looking at urinary concentrations of BPA after eating canned food found that eating one canned food item versus eating none was associated with 24% higher urinary BPA levels, and eating 2 or more canned foods versus none was associated with a 54% higher urinary BPA levels. We'll come back to this again when talking about plastics, but there are several things that can increase the rate at which substances like BPA leach or migrate out of the material it's in. And these three primary ones are heat, oil, and acidity. This is relevant because canned foods are heat processed. Some foods are also acidic, like tomato or tomato-based soups, or things like canned pineapple. And canned foods can sometimes contain fats, usually in the form of oils, for example, oil-packed sardines. Oily and acidic foods can have some of the highest levels of bisphenols in them. BPA exposure is linked to numerous health risks, including reproductive, fertility issues, male birth defects, early puberty, low birth weight, metabolic, weight gain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular and cancer, increased risks of heart disease and various cancers, neurological and behavioral, ADHD, impaired learning, hyperactivity, aggression, anxiety, depression, and others such as asthma, liver disease, inflammatory bowel disease. Think buying BPA-free cans is the solution? Not quite. BPA is part of a family of phenols, and its substitutes, like BPS and BPF, are nearly identical in structure. When consumers raised concerns, manufacturers simply swapped BPA with these similar chemicals, a practice known as regrettable substitution. Research shows that BPS and BPF can be just as harmful, if not worse, than BPA. Moreover, the few approved substances used for canned linings are often concerning, leaving us with little assurance of safety despite the BPA-free label. Until stricter regulations and safer food contact materials are in place, we're stuck playing chemical whack-a-mole, tackling one harmful substance like BPA only for another to take its place. As before, we'll dive into the major issues first and then explore ways to reduce our exposures. Let's talk about PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are a huge class of highly persistent chemicals. There are over 10,000 PFAS, but we have detailed data on only about 100. They're used in millions of industrial applications, so exposure is nearly universal. About 99% of people have PFAS in their bodies. PFAS are linked to multiple health effects, including increased cholesterol levels, altered liver enzymes, higher risk of blood pressure and preeclampsia in pregnancy, increased risk for kidney and testicular cancers, thyroid hormone disruption, metabolic and cardiovascular diseases. We're going to talk again about PFAS when we get to cookware. Though exposures are also happening in food packaging, in particular paper-based packaging like pizza boxes, microwave popcorn bags, cardboard to-go containers, fast food wrappers, including tissue paper used for bread and pastries, as well as burgers, paper ice cream tubes, and even butter wrappers. The reason PFAS chemicals are used in these paper-based products is to make them oil-proof and or water-resistant. Last year, Consumer Reports tested more than 100 packaging products for PFAS and found traces in at least 1/3 of them. In some cases, PFAS was directly added, and in other cases, it was likely present as a contaminant that it picked up during manufacturing. Fortunately, progress is underway. As of December 2022, 11 states have enacted or are preparing laws to ban or restrict PFAS in food packaging. This regulatory pressure should encourage manufacturers to adopt uniform PFAS-reduced packaging nationwide. Let's move on to talk about plastics in the kitchen. Who here has plastics in the kitchen? Trick question. We all do. We all have various plastic items in our kitchen, often more than we think. Here's a quick exercise. Open all your kitchen drawers and cabinets and look. Don't do anything, just observe and take stock of all the plastic items that you have. Things like plastic food storage containers, utensils like spatulas and ladles, mixing bowls, cups, dishes, your food processor and blender, and on and on. Not all, not all plastics are the same. There are definitely ones that are more problematic than others, but on the whole, it's a good idea to start to examine just how necessary all that plastic actually is. Plastics come in many forms: clear, opaque, hard, flexible, but their manufacturing methods are proprietary. We rely on the resin identification code, the number within the chasing arrows, as a basic guide. Don't be fooled. The chasing arrows don't mean the plastic is recyclable. They were meant to help sort plastics manually, yet only number 1 and number 2 plastics are widely recyclable. The rest are not, and the EPA is even asking for these symbols to be phased out. We'll revisit recycling shortly. The most concerning types of plastics include number 3, number 6, and number 7. PVC, often labeled as number 3 or simply V, is highly toxic to produce and remains toxic throughout its life cycle. When incinerated, it releases dioxins and furans, some of the most dangerous chemicals known. Polystyrene, also known as styrofoam, which is number 6, can leach styrene into food, especially in high-fat foods when heated. So it's wise to reconsider using styrofoam for to-go cups and takeout packaging. The number 7 category covers all plastics not recognized or categorized as number 1 through 6 and includes polycarbonate, a clear, hard, and shatterproof plastic found in products like children's drinking cups, food processor bowls, blender carafes, and durable food storage containers. Polycarbonate contains BPA, a plasticizer used to add rigidity, while other additives like phthalates found in PET and soft plastics such as shower curtains and garden hoses are used to make plastics more flexible. While number 3, 6, and 7 plastics have the most concerns, it turns out that all plastics can release toxic chemicals, especially if they are recycled. A study released in mid-2023 found that recycled plastics, which many companies are boasting about using in food packaging, can accumulate and release many toxic chemicals, including styrene, benzene, bisphenol, and heavy metals, formaldehyde, and phthalates. Heat, oil, and acidity, factors that boost BPA leaching from canned foods, also increase chemical migration from plastics. That's why it's advised not to heat food in plastic, such as in a microwave. This migration works both ways. Food components can be absorbed into the plastic, and plastic molecules can leach into the food. For example, if you ever noticed an orange stain on your plastic container from pasta sauce or tomato soup that no amount of washing can remove, it's because the hot, oily, acidic sauce has penetrated the plastic. Essentially, the food and the plastic melt together, embedding food compounds in the plastic and allowing plastic molecules to contaminate the food. This perfectly illustrates why hot food should never be placed in plastic. BPA plastics aren't necessarily safer. They can exhibit the same issues as BPA-free cans. One potential exception is Triton copolymer, which is claimed to be free of estrogenic and androgenic activity. However, these tests only cover two ways chemicals can interfere with hormones, so Triton may still leach other hormone disrupting substances. In short, Triton might be better than regular polycarbonate, but more research is needed before we can be sure. Silicone is commonly used in kitchen products like baking mats, cake pans, muffin pans, because it's non-stick and easy to clean. However, it's made from petroleum-based chemicals, dyes, and fillers, ingredients that are not fully disclosed. When heated to about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, silicone can leach potentially endocrine disrupting chemicals, though this does not occur at lower temperatures like those in the fridge or the freezer. Additionally, silicone isn't biodegradable or easily recyclable, so it ends up in a landfill. For these reasons, it's best to minimize the use of silicone products in the kitchen. Let's talk about cookware issues. Remember, our goal is improvement, not perfection. The biggest concern in cookware is non-stick coatings, often referred to as Teflon. This is a brand name and not the chemical itself. These coatings contain PFAS chemicals, the same ones found in grease-proof paper packaging that have been linked to the numerous health issues. While cookware may not be our primary source of PFAS chemical exposure, food packaging, water, and textiles are more significant. It still contributes meaningfully. A 2022 study found that a single scratch on non-stick cookware can release over 9,000 PFAS particles, and a damaged coating can release more than 2 million particles, most of which end up in our food. These non-stick surfaces aren't limited to pans. They're also used in bakeware, cookie sheets, waffle makers, and even air fryers. There's a lot of deceptive marketing out there. Many companies promote their non-stick pans as PFOA or FE free, but that's misleading. PTFE is a precursor to PFOA, which has been phased out years ago. With over 10,000 chemicals in the PFAS class, claiming to be free of just one molecule means very little. If a pan is labeled non-stick, even with free of claims, it's still made with PFAS and should be avoided. Unglazed clay pots have been used for thousands of years and remain popular worldwide, but they can leach toxic metals like lead, cadmium, and arsenic, depending on the clay composition. Since testing for these materials is expensive, it's best to avoid using unglazed clay pots for cooking. Similarly, when glazed decorative pots, while they may be beautiful, the glazes often contain heavy metals that can leach into food. The FDA advises extra caution with pottery that is handmade with a crude appearance, antique, damaged, sold by unreliable sources, or brightly decorated in orange, red, or yellow. These items may be fine as decorative pieces, but they should not be used for food contact. Aluminum cookware is valued for its excellent and even heat conduction. Because of this, aluminum is often used as a base layer in multi-layer pans where food doesn't come in direct contact with the metal. However, with pure aluminum cookware, such as sheet pans or pots, food is in contact with the metal, which can lead to increased aluminum leaching, especially when cooking acidic foods, using longer cooking times, or employing aluminum foil. Although laboratory studies suggest that high levels of aluminum can be neurotoxic, extensive research has not established a strong link to Alzheimer's or Parkinson's diseases. Overall, aluminum cookware is generally safe, but it should be used with caution under conditions that promote leaching. Ceramic-coated cookware has quickly become popular with the brands like Our Place, Always, and Green Pan, claiming these pans are non-toxic, healthy, and environmentally friendly. Despite the name, the coatings aren't truly ceramic. They simply mimic ceramic's appearance. Instead of PFAS coatings, These pans use silicone-based coatings that, so far, don't appear to leach any known toxic chemicals. However, the durability of these coatings is a concern. Even with proper care, they typically only last 1 to 2 years, and many users report wear within just 6 months. This short lifespan means you'll likely need to replace your cookware frequently, which can be both costly and wasteful. Ideally, cookware should be a long-term investment that lasts for decades. Okay, deep breath. Let's get into our action steps. Now that you know what the issues are with canned foods, plastics, and cookware, let's talk about what small shifts we can make to lower our exposure to the toxicants in the kitchen. When grocery shopping, focus on food packaging. While you can't always avoid canned foods completely, you can reduce exposure by choosing items packaged in glass, such as ketchup, mayonnaise, and jarred tomatoes. As more companies are returning to glass bottles, you can also opt for dried or frozen alternatives. For example, cook dried beans instead of using canned ones, and frozen vegetables are a good option even in plastic bags. Tetra boxed foods are marginally better than canned because they're lined with PET, number 1 plastic. Remember, the goal is to reduce exposure, not achieve 100% elimination, as striving perfection can be more stressful than the exposure itself. We should also reduce our use of grease-proof papers. For example, microwave popcorn bags are coated with PFAS, so opt for air-popped or stove-popped popcorn instead. This also means limiting fast food consumption. Ultimately, we do our best in an imperfect world, and there's still a lot of work to be done on a societal level. When storing leftovers or dry goods, we want to move away from plastic food storage containers and switch to glass. Thankfully, there are countless options available for these. You can even clean and reuse glass jars from peanut butter or pickles to store leftovers. As you likely know, most glass food containers will have plastic lids, which isn't ideal, but we can avoid any issues by not filling the container all the way up so the food doesn't touch the plastic. Or you can put a piece of parchment paper between the lid and the food. Remember when I asked you to take stock of all the plastic items in your drawers and cabinets? Now it's time to phase them out and replace them with alternatives like stainless steel, wood, or glass. For example, swap black plastic spatulas for stainless steel or wooden ones. Choose wooden cutting boards, which harbor fewer bacteria, over plastic, and opt for stainless steel or glass strainers, mixing bowls, and water bottles. Some kitchen items, like food processor bowls and high-speed blenders, are inevitably plastic. Instead of discarding them, use them more carefully by hand and washing them by hand with a soft sponge and mild soap rather than in the dishwasher. Avoid grinding hard foods in your plastic blender by using a stainless steel coffee grinder, and opt for a stainless steel immersion blender to blend hot soups directly in the pot instead of transferring hot liquids into a plastic container. Lastly, choose safer cookware by prioritizing stainless steel, carbon steel, cast iron, enameled cast iron, and glass. With proper care, these materials can last a lifetime. While cast iron and carbon steel require a bit of extra maintenance, it's not difficult. They may leach small amounts of iron, but this iron is poorly absorbed, and a well-seasoned pan minimizes migration. In fact, a well-seasoned cast iron or carbon steel pan essentially functions as a non-stick surface. And that is it for part 2. I will see you on part 3.
Thank you for joining me on The Functional Edge. I hope today's episode gave you fresh insights and practical tools to level up your life. If you found value in what you heard, don't forget to hit subscribe, share the podcast with someone who needs it, and leave a review. It's the best way to support our mission of bringing powerful health solutions to more people. For more resources, updates, and behind-the-scenes content, visit drjuliaward.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay healthy, and keep living on the functional edge.